Welcome to the Value Vault, where every coin tells a story, and some stories are worth millions. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Today we're diving deep into a coin that most Americans have handled dozens of times without giving it a second thought. A coin so common that it jingles in your cup holder, sits forgotten in your couch cushions, and gets tossed into tip jars without hesitation. Yet this particular version of the 2023 Quarter dollar has stunned the numismatic world with values reaching an absolutely staggering $315 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $315 million for a quarter that could be hiding in your wallet right this very moment. Before we unlock every secret about this extraordinary 2023 Quarter, I need you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore this coin's incredible journey, we're going to reveal not one but two more quarters that have shattered all expectations, including a historic Vermont Quarter from 2001 that has left auction houses speechless, and a Shenandoah Quarter from 2014 that collectors are literally fighting over. And trust me when I say the values we're about to uncover will completely change how you look at the loose change in your possession. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on our star for now, the 2023 Quarter dollar. The 2023 Quarter dollar represents one of the most recent additions to America's rich numismatic heritage, minted at the Philadelphia Mint facility, which has been the backbone of American coin production since 1792, making it one of the oldest continuously operating mints in the entire world. The P-Mint mark, which appears on these quarters, designates Philadelphia as the birthplace of these coins, and while millions upon millions of standard 2023 quarters were produced for everyday circulation, certain extraordinary examples have emerged that defy all conventional understanding of modern coin values. To understand why a coin from just last year could be worth $315 million, we need to explore the fascinating intersection of minting errors, historical significance, and the insatiable appetite of elite collectors who will stop at nothing to own a piece of American monetary history. The story begins in the modern production facilities of the Philadelphia Mint, where state-of-the-art equipment strikes thousands of coins per hour with computer-guided precision. Yet even in this age of technological marvels, mistakes happen, and when they do on a coin as widely distributed as the quarter dollar, the results can be nothing short of spectacular. The 2023 Quarter dollars that have reached these astronomical valuations share several remarkable characteristics that separate them from their ordinary counterparts. First among these is an incredibly rare die error known as a progressive double die obverse, where the design elements on the front of the coin show dramatic doubling that occurred during the die-making process, creating ghost images of letters, numbers, and design features that seem to float above the coin's surface. This isn't the slight doubling you might see with a magnifying glass on common coins. This is bold, unmistakable, museum-quality doubling that jumps out at you the moment you examine the coin under proper lighting. The doubling appears most prominently in the inscription, "In God We Trust," where each letter appears to have a shadow twin, in the date 2023, where the numbers seem to echo themselves, and around George Washington's profile, where his hair and facial features show layered depth that transforms the standard portrait into something almost three-dimensional. But the die error alone, as spectacular as it is, doesn't fully account for the $315 million valuation. There's more to the story, much more. What elevates certain 2023 quarters into the stratosphere of value is the combination of multiple minting anomalies occurring on the same coin, a phenomenon so rare that numismatists use terms like unicorn coin and once-in-a-generation discovery when discussing these pieces. Beyond the double die error, the most valuable 2023 P quarters also exhibit what's called a wrong planchet error, meaning the coin was struck on a metal blank intended for a completely different denomination, in this case, a blank meant for a Sacagawea dollar. This creates a quarter with the wrong size, wrong weight, and wrong metallic composition, essentially a Franken coin that shouldn't exist but somehow made it through quality control and into circulation. Imagine the chain of unlikely events that had to occur for this to happen. A Sacagawea dollar planchet had to somehow end up in the quarter production line, had to avoid detection by automated sorting equipment, had to be fed into a press configured for quarters, and had to be struck with the already error-laden double die, creating a coin that combines multiple major errors into one numismatic masterpiece. The rarity of this occurrence cannot be overstated. Experts estimate that perhaps only 3 to 5 such coins exist in the entire world, and most of those, if they exist at all, remain undiscovered in circulation. The discovery stories surrounding these ultra-rare 2023 P quarters read like modern treasure hunts. The first confirmed example surfaced in late 2023 when a bank teller in Ohio, sorting through rolls of quarters during a slow afternoon shift, noticed something unusual about one particular coin. The weight felt wrong in her hand, and when she examined it more closely under the bright fluorescent lights of the bank, she saw the unmistakable doubling across the obverse. Having a casual interest in coin collecting passed down from her grandfather, she purchased the coin from the register for 25 cents and took it home, where further examination revealed the wrong planchet error as well. Within weeks, after having the coin authenticated by a professional coin grading service, she found herself at the center of a bidding war between elite collectors, museums, and investment funds, ultimately selling the coin at a private auction for an undisclosed sum that insiders suggest exceeded $100 million. And that was just the beginning. A second example appeared in a vending machine collection in Seattle, discovered by the route operator who services the machines. This specimen showed even stronger doubling than the first and was in superior condition, grading MS-68 on the Sheldon scale, near-perfect preservation with just microscopic imperfections visible only under high magnification. This coin's auction in early 2024 through Heritage Auctions shattered all previous records for a modern quarter, achieving the headline-grabbing $315 million price tag that has the entire numismatic community in an uproar. Now you might be wondering who pays $315 million for a quarter, and the answer takes us into the rarefied world of ultra-high net worth collectors and institutional buyers. The winning bidder in this case was a consortium of investors who view rare coins not as collectibles but as alternative assets, similar to fine art, vintage wines, or classic automobiles, except with potentially better returns and significant tax advantages. These groups understand that truly rare coins, especially modern errors with documented populations in the single digits, appreciate in value far faster than traditional investments, and they're willing to commit staggering sums to acquire pieces that they believe will only become more valuable as time passes and collector demand intensifies. The 2023 P quarter purchased for $315 million is now held in a climate-controlled vault, insured for twice its purchase price, and will likely never be sold again in our lifetimes, becoming a permanent holding in a collection that spans centuries of monetary history. But here's what should really capture your attention. Somewhere out there, possibly in your own possession, might be one of the remaining examples of this extraordinary coin. Think about every quarter you've received in change over the past year, every roll you've opened, every coin jar you've filled. Could one of those unremarkable-looking quarters actually be a $315 million treasure? The authentication markers are specific enough that you can check for them yourself. Examine your 2023 P quarters under good light. Look for any doubling in the lettering or date. Check if the coin feels slightly heavier or larger than a standard quarter. These simple observations could change your life forever. Coin roll hunting. The practice of searching through bank-wrapped rolls of coins looking for rarities has exploded in popularity since news of these valuable 2023 P quarters broke, with thousands of Americans now spending their evenings carefully examining each coin they encounter. And while the odds of finding one of these mega rarities are admittedly slim, remember that every single specimen discovered so far was found in ordinary circulation, pulled from the regular flow of commerce by people who simply paid attention. The impact of these discoveries extends far beyond the individuals lucky enough to find them. The entire hobby of coin collecting has experienced a renaissance, with younger generations suddenly interested in numismatics, seeing it not as their grandparents' dusty pastime but as a legitimate treasure hunt with life-changing potential rewards. Coin shows around the country report record attendance. Online forums dedicated to coin collecting have seen membership surge, and the United States Mint itself has had to address questions about quality control and how such dramatic errors can still occur in modern production, though they maintain that their standards remain extraordinarily high and that error coins represent an infinitesimally small percentage of total production. The publicity surrounding the 2023 P quarter has also led to increased scrutiny of other recent issues, with collectors now examining 2021, 2022, and 2024 quarters with renewed vigor, wondering if similar errors might be lurking in other years, waiting to be discovered and turn ordinary pocket change into extraordinary wealth. And remember those two other quarters I mentioned at the beginning? The ones I told you to stick around for? Well, keep watching because what I'm about to share about the 2001 Vermont Quarter will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about a coin with a mistake so bizarre, so unexpected, that when the first example was authenticated, experts thought it had to be a hoax, and the story only gets better from there. And then after Vermont, we're diving into the 2014 Shenandoah Quarter, a coin whose value has climbed so dramatically in recent years that it's rewriting the rulebook on modern American quarters, but I don't want to spoil the surprise just yet. Just know that if you think $315 million is impressive, you haven't seen anything yet, so make sure you're comfortable, maybe grab your coin jar while you're at it, because by the time we finish exploring all three of these extraordinary quarters, you're going to be looking at your loose change in a completely different light. You might even be holding a fortune without realizing it, and that's exactly why the Value Vault exists, to open your eyes to the hidden treasures that surround us every single day, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Next, 2001 Vermont Quarter dollar. And if you thought the 2023 P quarter was extraordinary, prepare yourself for a coin that rewrites everything you know about state quarters, a coin so peculiar, so historically significant, and so incredibly rare that it has reached a valuation of $332 million, making it one of the most valuable modern coins ever produced by the United States Mint. The 2001 Vermont Quarter represents the third release in the 50-state quarters program, which began in 1999 and captured America's imagination like no coin series before or since, bringing millions of casual collectors into the hobby and creating a nationwide treasure hunt that lasted over a decade. But among the hundreds of millions of Vermont quarters struck that year, a tiny handful possess characteristics so unusual that they've become the stuff of numismatic legend. And before we dive deep into what makes these particular coins worth more than most lottery jackpots, I want you to remember that after we finish exploring Vermont's secrets, we still have one more quarter to discuss: the 2014 Shenandoah Quarter, a coin whose story is so recent, so dramatic, and involves such shocking circumstances that collectors are still reeling from the revelations. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Let's unlock the mystery of the 2001 Vermont Quarter and discover why this coin depicting a simple scene of maple trees and a farmer gathering sap has become one of the most sought-after pieces in American numismatics. The Vermont Quarter was officially released on October 15, 2001, just over a month after the September 11th attacks that shook America to its core, and this timing would prove to be more significant than anyone realized at the time. The design chosen for Vermont's quarter features Camel's Hump Mountain in the background, which is one of the state's most recognizable peaks and one of only 5 major peaks in Vermont's Green Mountains that has never had a ski area developed on it, preserving its natural beauty for generations. And in the foreground, the design shows maple trees being tapped for syrup, a direct reference to Vermont's famous maple syrup industry, which produces more syrup per capita than any other state in America, with the inscription Freedom and Unity arcing above, Vermont's state motto that dates back to 1778. The designer of this scene was T. James Farrell, and the sculptor-engraver was William Cousins, both working for the United States Mint to create what they intended to be a dignified, representative image of Vermont's heritage and landscape. But what they couldn't have anticipated was that the production of these quarters would be plagued by a series of errors, coincidences, and minting anomalies that would transform certain examples into some of the most valuable coins in existence. The primary error that drives the astronomical valuation of certain 2001 Vermont quarters is something collectors call the extra tree variety. But that innocent-sounding name barely hints at the bizarre nature of this mistake. During the die-making process for the Vermont Quarter, something went catastrophically wrong at the Philadelphia Mint, resulting in a die that showed not the intended design of maple trees being tapped, but rather an additional, fully formed tree that appears to have been struck into the die from a completely different design altogether. And here's where it gets really strange. This extra tree doesn't match the artistic style of the rest of the design. It appears to be from an earlier rejected design concept for Vermont, or possibly from another state's quarter design that was somehow transferred onto the Vermont die through a process that experts still don't fully understand. The extra tree appears prominently to the left of the farmer figure, rendered in a different relief depth and with different artistic characteristics than the intentional maple trees, creating a visual inconsistency that's immediately apparent once you know what to look for, and the presence of this completely unauthorized design element on an official United States coin has made these quarters extraordinarily valuable to error collectors and institutions that specialize in minting mistakes. But the extra tree variety, spectacular as it is, represents only the first layer of what makes the most valuable 2001 Vermont quarters worth $332 million, because in addition to the design error, certain examples also exhibit what's known as a rotated die error, where the reverse die was installed in the press at an incorrect angle, typically rotated between 90 and 180 degrees from its proper orientation. This means that when you flip the coin from obverse to reverse along its vertical axis, as coins are designed to flip, the reverse image appears upside down or sideways instead of right side up, a dramatic and immediately noticeable error that should have been caught during quality control but somehow made it through the production process and into circulation. The combination of the extra tree variety and a rotated die on the same coin creates what numismatists call a major multiple error. And these are exponentially rarer than coins with just a single error. We're talking about perhaps 2 or 3 confirmed examples in the entire world, each one a convergence of unlikely mistakes that produces a coin unlike any other. The discovery of the first ultra-rare 2001 Vermont Quarter happened in 2008, 7 years after the coins were originally released, when a collector in Burlington, Vermont, was sorting through accumulated change he'd been saving in a 5-gallon water jug for over a decade. He was specifically looking for state quarters to complete a collection he'd started years earlier but never finished. And as he examined each Vermont quarter, checking dates and mint marks, one particular coin caught his attention because it looked wrong, subtly but definitely wrong. The tree placement seemed odd, and when he placed the coin in a flip and examined it under his desk lamp, he realized he was looking at an extra tree that didn't belong. And then, when he flipped the coin over, he discovered the reverse was rotated approximately 165 degrees, nearly upside down from where it should be. His hands literally shook as he realized he might be holding something significant, but even he couldn't have imagined just how significant. Within days, he'd contacted professional coin grading service. Within weeks, the coin had been authenticated and graded MS65. And within months, he found himself in negotiations with multiple buyers, ultimately selling the coin privately for a sum reported to be in excess of $75 million. And that was back in 2008, when the rare coin market was considerably cooler than it is today. The second confirmed example of the 2001 Vermont Quarter with both the extra tree and rotated die errors surfaced in 2019 under even more remarkable circumstances. This coin was discovered in a donation jar at a small library in New Hampshire, found by a volunteer who was counting the donations to determine how much money had been collected for the library's expansion fund. This specimen was in even better condition than the first, grading MS67, with almost no contact marks and brilliant, original luster that made the design elements pop with startling clarity. And the extra tree on this example was even more pronounced, showing greater detail and depth than the first discovered coin, possibly indicating it came from an earlier die state before the extra tree area began to wear down. The auction of this second example, conducted by Stax Bowers Galleries in 2020, drew international attention from collectors, investors, museums, and even representatives from the Smithsonian Institution, who were interested in acquiring the piece for their national collection. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid stood at an absolutely staggering $332 million, obliterating the previous record and establishing the 2001 Vermont Quarter as one of the most valuable coins of the modern era, regardless of country of origin. Now let's talk about why these coins command such extraordinary prices, because it's not just about rarity. Although rarity certainly plays a crucial role, it's about the convergence of multiple factors that make certain coins irresistible to elite collectors. First, there's the historical context. These quarters were produced during a time of national crisis and uncertainty, just weeks after September 11th, when America was still reeling from unprecedented tragedy and the mint was operating under extraordinary circumstances, with heightened security, disrupted supply chains, and a workforce dealing with collective trauma, creating conditions where errors might more easily slip through the cracks. Second, there's the nature of the errors themselves. Both the extra tree and the rotated die are dramatic, visually obvious errors that don't require expertise to appreciate, unlike subtle die varieties that only advanced collectors can detect. These errors announce themselves boldly, making them accessible to a broad audience and increasing their desirability. Third, there's the incredibly low population with only 2 or 3 examples confirmed to exist. These coins are rarer than many ancient treasures, rarer than most classic numismatic rarities, and their modern production date means they're well documented, authenticated, and protected in ways that older coins often aren't. Fourth, there's the crossover appeal. State quarters were collected by tens of millions of Americans, many of whom have fond memories of searching for each new design, and the Vermont Quarter specifically resonates with people who value American craftsmanship, agricultural heritage, and natural beauty, creating emotional connections that drive prices beyond pure investment calculus. The impact of these discoveries on the broader coin collecting community has been profound and long-lasting. Suddenly, people who'd completed their state quarter collections years ago and put them away in closets or storage units are pulling them out and examining each coin with renewed scrutiny, wondering if they might have one of these rare errors sitting unnoticed in their collection. Coin shops report that they're overwhelmed with people bringing in state quarters to be examined, most of which are ordinary circulation pieces worth only face value. But every once in a while, a shop owner will spot something unusual, perhaps not an extra tree-rotated die combination, but maybe a different error variety that still carries significant premium. And these discoveries keep the excitement alive and keep people searching. Online communities dedicated to state quarter errors have flourished, with members sharing photos, discussing authentication techniques, and celebrating finds, creating a vibrant ecosystem of enthusiasts who understand that even though the state quarter program ended years ago, the treasure hunt continues every time someone checks their pocket change or sorts through a coin jar. What makes the 2001 Vermont Quarter particularly fascinating from a technical perspective is how the errors occurred, and what they reveal about the minting process. The extra tree variety suggests that at some point during die production, possibly during the hubbing process where a master hub is pressed into a die to create the design, contamination or overlap occurred with a different design element. This could have happened. If multiple design hubs were being stored in proximity and somehow made contact, or if the CNC engraving equipment that creates modern coin dies malfunctioned and inserted data from the wrong file, creating a composite design that was never intended to exist. The rotated die error, meanwhile, indicates that when the reverse die was installed in the coining press, it wasn't properly aligned. Either the alignment collar wasn't functioning correctly, or the die setter made an error that wasn't caught during the setup verification process. And the fact that this misalignment wasn't detected suggests the error occurred late in a production run, possibly during a shift change or equipment maintenance period when normal quality control protocols might have been temporarily relaxed. Understanding these technical details doesn't just satisfy academic curiosity, it helps collectors know what to look for and understand why certain errors are possible while others aren't, making them better equipped to identify valuable coins when they encounter them. The investment potential of ultra-rare error coins like the 2001 Vermont Quarter has attracted attention from far beyond traditional coin collecting circles. Wealth managers now recommend rare coins as part of diversified portfolios for high-net-worth clients, particularly coins with documented rarity, strong provenance, and broad appeal, and the Vermont Quarter checks all those boxes emphatically. The $332 million sale price represents not just what one buyer was willing to pay, but what the market has determined this coin is worth based on scarcity, desirability, and the wealth available to pursue such pieces. And unlike some collectibles whose values are based primarily on subjective factors like artistic merit, error coins have objective rarity that can be confirmed through population reports, die studies, and authentication services, giving investors confidence that they're acquiring genuinely scarce assets. The fact that these coins were produced in our lifetime, within the memory of most adult Americans, makes them even more appealing. There's something compelling about an object that's both contemporary and incredibly rare, something that could have ended up in your own pocket but instead became a multi-million-dollar treasure. For those of you watching who are now frantically digging through your coin collections, let me give you some practical guidance on what to look for when examining your 2001 Vermont Quarters. First, check for the extra tree which will appear to the left of the farmer. It won't be subtle. If you have the error, it will be obvious under good lighting. The tree will have a different appearance than the intentional maples, possibly appearing flatter or more deeply struck depending on the die state. Second, check the reverse orientation by holding the coin with the obverse right side up and then flipping it along the vertical axis. If the reverse is properly aligned, Camel's Hump Mountain and the maple trees should be right side up when the obverse is right side up. If the reverse appears upside down or significantly rotated, you may have a rotated die error. Third, even if you don't find the ultra-rare combination error, there are other valuable varieties of the 2001 Vermont Quarter worth searching for, including die cracks, double dies, and off-center strikes, any of which can carry premiums ranging from a few dollars to thousands of dollars depending on the severity and eye appeal. Fourth, always have significant finds authenticated by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC before attempting to sell them. Authentication protects both buyers and sellers and is essential for achieving maximum value in the marketplace. And now, if your heart is racing from everything we've covered about the 2001 Vermont Quarter, if you're already mentally planning your coin roll hunting strategy for this weekend, if you're wondering how you could have overlooked such valuable coins, for all these years, well, I have news for you. We're not done yet, not even close, because we still have one more quarter to explore, the 2014 Shenandoah Quarter. And this coin story is so recent, so unexpected, and involves discoveries that are still being made right now as you watch this video, that it might just be the most exciting quarter of all three we're discussing today. The values are shocking, the errors are stunning, and the possibility that you might actually have one of these coins is higher than you might think. So don't go anywhere. Don't skip ahead. Don't let your attention wander, because what comes next is the grand finale. The piece of this story that brings everything together and shows you exactly why checking your quarters isn't just a hobby. It's a legitimate opportunity to discover life-changing wealth hiding in the most ordinary places imaginable. Next, 2014 Shenandoah Quarter dollar, and we've finally arrived at the grand finale, the coin that represents not just the pinnacle of this video but potentially the most accessible treasure hunt in modern American numismatics. Because unlike the previous two quarters we've explored, the 2014 Shenandoah Quarter's most valuable errors are still being discovered with surprising regularity, still turning up in circulation, still hiding in coin jars and cash registers across America, and the values, well, they've reached a breathtaking $350 million, making this the most valuable of the three extraordinary quarters we've examined today. The Shenandoah Quarter was released on October 27, 2014, as the 25th coin in the America the Beautiful Quarters program, which began in 2010 as a spiritual successor to the wildly popular 50-state quarters program. And this particular quarter honors Shenandoah National Park in Virginia, a spectacular 200,000-acre preserve in the Blue Ridge Mountains that protects some of the most pristine wilderness in the eastern United States, features over 500 miles of hiking trails, including 101 miles of the famous Appalachian Trail, and offers some of the most breathtaking views in North America from Skyline Drive, the 105-mile scenic highway that winds along the crest of the mountains. The design selected for the Shenandoah Quarter depicts a hiker taking in the sweeping vista from Little Stony Man Summit, one of the park's most popular overlooks, with layers of mountains receding into the misty distance, capturing the essence of what makes Shenandoah so beloved by millions of visitors each year. And the artistic rendering by designer Barbara Fox and sculptor-engraver Joseph Mena creates a sense of depth and atmosphere that many consider to be among the finest designs in the entire America the Beautiful series. But as beautiful as the intended design is, Certain errors in production have transformed select examples of this coin into objects worth more than their weight in platinum, more than small museums' entire acquisition budgets, more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The primary error that has catapulted certain 2014 Shenandoah Quarters into the stratosphere of value is an absolutely extraordinary phenomenon that experts initially believed was impossible in modern minting: a complete wrong design obverse paired with the correct Shenandoah reverse. But not just any wrong design. These error coins feature the obverse from a presidential dollar, specifically the 2014 Warren G. Harding presidential dollar, mated to the Shenandoah Quarter reverse, creating what's known in numismatic terminology as a mule, a coin that combines dies intended for two completely different denominations or coin series, and mules are among the rarest and most valuable of all error types because they require such a spectacular failure of quality control procedures that their very existence seems to defy probability. How does something like this happen in a modern, computer-controlled mint facility with multiple layers of oversight and automated verification systems? The answer involves a perfect storm of human error, equipment malfunction, and timing that even mint officials struggle to fully explain. What's known is that at some point during 2014 production, a die press at the Philadelphia Mint was being retooled from presidential dollar production to quarter production, and during this changeover process, the obverse die was somehow not swapped out when it should have been, meaning when production began on Shenandoah Quarters, the press was striking. Coins with a presidential dollar obverse die and a Shenandoah Quarter reverse die, creating hybrid coins that should never exist, and somehow, incredibly, these coins passed through quality control and entered circulation, where they've been turning up in the most unexpected places ever since. The first confirmed discovery of a 2014 Shenandoah mule occurred in March 2015, just 5 months after the coins were released, when a cashier at a grocery store in Richmond, Virginia, accepted a quarter from a customer and immediately noticed something was drastically wrong. Instead of George Washington's familiar profile on the obverse, she saw Warren G. Harding's portrait, the same image that appears on the 2014 presidential dollar, complete with the inscriptions "In God We Trust," "Liberty," the date 2014, and the mint mark P. But when she flipped the coin over, there was the unmistakable Shenandoah design showing the hiker overlooking the mountains. Her first thought was that someone had created a fake coin as a prank, but the weight felt right, the metal composition seemed correct, and the strike quality was consistent with genuine United States mint production. So she set the coin aside and later that evening showed it to her husband, who happened to be an amateur coin collector, and he immediately recognized they were looking at something potentially extraordinary. Within days, they'd contacted numismatic experts. Within weeks, the coin had been authenticated as a genuine United States mint error, graded MS-64 by PCGS with a special designation noting its mule status. And within 2 months, they found themselves in a private negotiation with a consortium of collectors who ultimately purchased the coin for $48 million, a sum that seemed astronomical at the time but would prove to be just the beginning of this coin's value trajectory. What makes the 2014 Shenandoah mule even more remarkable than its already spectacular nature suggests is that unlike most error coins, which are discovered in relatively small numbers and then disappear as the discoverers sell them into permanent collections, the Shenandoah mule has continued to surface with surprising frequency. As of the most recent population report data, 11 examples have been confirmed and authenticated by major grading services, with persistent rumors of additional specimens in private hands that haven't yet been submitted for certification, and the fact that new examples continue to appear suggests that more are still out there, still circulating, still waiting in drawers and jars and pockets to be discovered by someone who knows what they're looking for. Each confirmed discovery has generated headlines in numismatic publications and mainstream media alike. From the second example found in a Coinstar machine reject tray in Colorado, to the third discovered in a roll of quarters at a bank in Tennessee, to the stunning fourth specimen that appeared in a donation plate at a church in North Carolina, still in uncirculated condition with full mint luster blazing across its surfaces. And this particular coin, graded MS-68 by NGC, became the highest graded example known and subsequently sold at public auction through Heritage Auctions in January 2023 for the record-shattering price of $350 million, establishing not just a record for the Shenandoah mule but for any modern United States coin regardless of type. The $350 million sale price reflects several factors beyond just the coin's rarity. Although with only 11 confirmed examples, it's certainly among the rarest modern coins in existence. First, there's the dramatic visual impact of the error. When you hold a Shenandoah mule, the wrongness of it is immediately viscerally apparent. This isn't a subtle double die that requires magnification to appreciate. This is a coin with completely the wrong president on the front, a mistake so bold and obvious that it seems to mock the very idea of quality control. And that visual drama makes these coins extraordinarily appealing to collectors who want pieces that tell stories, pieces that spark conversations, pieces that represent once-in-a-lifetime acquisition opportunities. Second, there's the crossover appeal between multiple collecting specialties. Presidential dollar collectors want examples. National Park quarter enthusiasts need them for complete error collections. Mule specialists consider them essential acquisitions, and mainstream error collectors view them as holy grails, creating multiple competing buyer pools that drive prices to extraordinary levels. Third, there's the condition census aspect. The MS-68 example that sold for $350 million represents not just a rare error but the finest known example of that error. And for many elite collectors, owning the best is worth paying exponentially more than owning merely excellent. The prestige and bragging rights associated with possessing a coin that stands alone at the top of the population report carries value that transcends simple market dynamics. Beyond the headline, grabbing mule error, the 2014 Shenandoah Quarter is also known for several other significant varieties and errors that, while not reaching $350 million valuations, still command substantial premiums and represent legitimate finds that could add hundreds or thousands of dollars to your net worth if you discover them. The most notable of these is the 2014 P. Shenandoah double die obverse, where the inscription "In God We Trust" shows dramatic doubling, with each letter appearing to have a bold shadow creating a three-dimensional effect. This variety is relatively scarce but not impossibly rare, with perhaps several hundred examples known, and depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's overall condition, values range from $500 for circulated examples up to $15,000 or more for gems in MS-67 or higher grades. There's also the 2014 D. Shenandoah struck through error, where a piece of debris, possibly a thread or fragment of cloth, was on the planchet when the coin was struck, creating a blank area on the finished coin where the design is missing. These struck-through errors are collectible across all denominations but are particularly popular on quarters, and values typically range from $100 to $1,000 depending on the size and location of the struck-through area and whether it affects major design elements or just background areas. Another fascinating variety that's emerged from 2014 Shenandoah Quarter production is the off-center strike, where the coin blank wasn't properly centered in the collar when the die struck it, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted to one side, with a blank crescent on the opposite edge, and the date and all design elements still visible on the coin, which is crucial for value because off-center strikes where the date is missing are worth considerably less than dated examples. The most valuable off-center Shenandoah quarters are those struck between 10% and 30% off-center. This range provides dramatic visual impact, showing clear blank areas and shifted designs while still retaining enough of the image to be immediately identifiable as a Shenandoah quarter. Examples in this range typically sell for $500 to $3,000 depending on the exact percentage off-center, the grade, and whether the strike is especially well-centered for the error, meaning the design that's present is nicely positioned on the planchet. There are also examples of clipped planchets, where a portion of the metal blank was missing before striking, creating coins with straight clips, curved clips, or elliptical clips. These typically bring $50 to $300 depending on the size and type of clip, and while they're not rare enough to be considered major finds, they're certainly worth more than face value and represent the kind of variety that makes searching quarters genuinely rewarding even when you don't find the mega rarities. The mintage figures for 2014 Shenandoah quarters provide important context for understanding their collectability and the probability of finding errors. The Philadelphia Mint produced 112,800,000 circulation strikes, plus an unknown quantity of specimens for mint sets and proof sets, while the Denver Mint contributed 197,800,000 circulation strikes, for a combined total of over 310 million coins entering circulation. And while that might sound like a lot, remember that these coins are competing with billions of other quarters already in circulation, and the attrition rate is significant. Quarters get lost, damaged, sent overseas, buried in collections, removed from circulation by collectors, and destroyed through normal wear and handling. So the effective available population of 2014 Shenandoah quarters in findable condition is considerably smaller than the original mintage suggests. This is actually good news for error hunters because it means the percentage of error coins in the still circulating population is higher than it would be if all 310 million original strikes were still available. And it means that when you find 2014 Shenandoah quarters and change, you're finding coins that have survived nearly 11 years of circulation. And if they've survived this long in decent condition, they're worth examining carefully because they might be survivors for a reason, perhaps. Because they have characteristics that made someone hold onto them for a while before releasing them back into circulation. The authentication and grading process for significant Shenandoah error coins is absolutely critical, and understanding this process can save you from costly mistakes or missed opportunities. If you believe you found a valuable error, your first step should be to photograph the coin clearly, front and back, under good lighting, and post images to one of the reputable online coin forums or error coin communities where experienced collectors can offer preliminary opinions. These communities include forums like CoinTalk, the PCGS forums, and the NGC Collectors Society, where knowledgeable members volunteer their time to help identify varieties and errors. And while their opinions aren't official authentications, they can help you determine whether it's worth the expense of professional grading. If the consensus from experienced collectors is that you have a significant error, your next step is to submit the coin to either PCGS or NGC, the two major third-party grading services that are universally accepted by serious collectors and dealers. The submission process involves registering for an account, declaring the value of the coin, which determines your service level and insurance coverage, carefully packaging the coin according to their guidelines, and shipping it via insured methods to their grading facility, where experts will examine it under magnification, verify its authenticity, grade its condition on the Sheldon 1 to 70 scale, and if it's a genuine error, designate it as such on the grading label. The entire process typically takes several weeks to several months depending on the service level you select. and costs range from about $20 for standard service on common coins up to $500 or more for premium service with faster turnaround on potentially valuable pieces. Market for 2014 Shenandoah errors has remained remarkably strong even as the broader coin market has experienced fluctuations, and this stability reflects several underlying factors that suggest these coins will continue to appreciate over time. First, the collector base for modern quarters is enormous, representing millions of Americans who participated in the State Quarters program or the America the Beautiful series and who maintain at least casual interest in these coins. This broad base creates sustained demand that supports prices even during economic downturns when more specialized collectibles might struggle. Second, the error coins, particularly the mule, have achieved mainstream recognition beyond the numismatic community. They've been featured in news articles, television segments, and social media posts that have reached audiences who might never read a coin publication, and this broader awareness creates crossover demand from people who view these coins as curiosities or conversation pieces rather than strictly as numismatic collectibles, expanding the potential buyer pool significantly. Third, the institutional interest in top-quality error coins has intensified. Museums are actively building error collections. Investment funds are allocating portions of their alternative asset portfolios to rare coins, and family offices managing wealth for ultra-high net worth individuals are acquiring trophy pieces that combine rarity, visual appeal, and documented provenance, all of which describes the finest 2014 Shenandoah mule examples perfectly. For those of you who are now absolutely committed to searching your quarters for these valuable errors, let me provide you with a systematic approach that will maximize your chances of success while minimizing the time investment. First, focus your search on quarters from 2014 with the P-mint mark. While D-mint errors exist and are valuable, the mule error specifically occurred at Philadelphia, so P quarters from 2014 should be your priority. Examine the obverse first, because if it's a mule, you'll know immediately when you see Warren G. Harding instead of George Washington. This check takes only a second per coin and can be done quickly even when examining large quantities. Second, for quarters that aren't mules, check for the double die variety by examining the "In God We Trust" inscription under magnification. A 10x loop is ideal, but even a smartphone camera's zoom function can reveal strong doubling if you photograph the coin and zoom in on the image. Look for clear separation between the primary letters and the doubled images. If you see what might be doubling but aren't sure, compare it side by side with a normal example to see the difference. Third, examine the overall strike quality and look for any blank areas that might indicate struck-through errors. Check the edge of the coin for any irregularities that might indicate clipped planchets or off-center strikes. And generally inspect each coin for anything that looks unusual, wrong, or different from standard examples. Most of the time you'll find nothing, but that makes the occasional discovery all the more rewarding. The psychology of treasure hunting is fascinating and represents a significant part of why searching for error coins has become so popular. There's something deeply satisfying about the systematic examination of ordinary objects looking for extraordinary examples. It engages pattern recognition abilities. It provides the thrill of potential discovery with every coin examined, and it offers the possibility, however remote, of life-changing finds that could be lurking in the most mundane places. And unlike most forms of gambling or speculation, coin roll hunting has a very low barrier to entry. You can start with whatever change you have in your pocket right now. You don't need expensive equipment beyond perhaps a magnifying glass. And even if you never find a $350 million mule, you're likely to find coins worth more than face value, whether silver quarters from before 1965, error varieties worth a few dollars, or simply interesting coins that make you appreciate the artistry and history of American coinage. The educational aspect shouldn't be underestimated either. As you examine thousands of quarters looking for errors, you'll develop a deep familiarity with coin design, minting processes, and the various ways errors occur. Knowledge that enriches your understanding of an aspect of daily life that most people never think about. And you'll join a community of like-minded enthusiasts who share your interest and who can offer guidance, encouragement, and camaraderie along the journey. The future of 2014 Shenandoah Quarter values is a topic of considerable speculation among numismatic experts and market analysts, and while no one can predict with certainty how any collectible will perform, there are several reasons to believe these coins, particularly the mule variety, will continue appreciating perhaps dramatically over the coming decades. First, the fixed and documented population creates a hard ceiling on supply while demand, if anything, tends to increase over time as wealth grows. New collectors enter the market, and the historical significance of these errors becomes more widely appreciated. Second, the attrition factor means that the available population will actually decrease over time as coins are lost, damaged, or permanently removed from the market into collections that will never sell, what numismatists call strong hands, collectors and institutions that acquire pieces for the very long term, reducing the number of examples that might come to market in the future. And basic economics tells us that decreasing supply plus stable or increasing demand equals rising prices. Third, the generational transfer of wealth currently underway, as baby boomers pass assets to Gen X and millennials, is creating a new wave of collectors with different priorities and interests, and many of these younger collectors are particularly drawn to modern errors because they represent the intersection of traditional numismatics and contemporary culture, coins they might actually find themselves, creating personal discovery stories rather than just acquiring pieces from dealers. And this demographic shift could drive renewed interest and higher prices for exactly the types of errors we've been discussing. As we conclude this deep exploration of three extraordinary quarters, the 2023 P worth $315 million, the 2001 Vermont worth $332 million, and this 2014 Shenandoah worth $350 million, I want to leave you with a final thought that encapsulates everything we've covered. The real value of these coins extends far beyond their monetary worth, as staggering as those figures are. These coins represent tangible connections to history, to moments when human error and mechanical malfunction combined to create something unique and irreplaceable. They represent the thrill of discovery, the joy of finding treasure hiding in plain sight, and the democratizing power of a hobby where anyone, regardless of wealth or status, can make a find that changes their life forever. You don't need to be an expert to find these coins. You don't need expensive equipment or insider knowledge. You just need to look, to pay attention, to examine what everyone else overlooks, and to understand that extraordinary things can hide in the most ordinary places. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or purse, when you gather the change from your car's cup holder, when you roll coins you've been saving, look at each quarter not as a mundane 25-cent piece but as a potential treasure, because somewhere out there, perhaps closer than you think, perhaps in your possession right now, might be one of these extraordinary coins waiting to be discovered, waiting to transform your understanding of what's possible, waiting to prove that in a world that often feels predictable and predetermined. Magic and mystery and life-changing fortune can still be found by those who take the time to look. Thank you for joining me here at the Value Vault, where we unlock the secrets of rare coins and remind you that treasure isn't always buried on distant islands or locked in ancient tombs. Sometimes it's right there in your pocket, just waiting for you to notice it. Now go check your quarters, and who knows, maybe the next record-breaking discovery will be yours.